see so many differences in all businesses. And it's not, when I say so many differences, even one SaaS business has a completely different language, different strategies to another SaaS business. So I think any development program, in my opinion, can't be off the shelf.
Which personal qualities are needed to succeed in sales?
It's a great question. I've actually got a podcast called Confessions of a Serial Seller, where I've interviewed basically the top 100 sales professionals around the world. And it's quite hard to quantify what makes the best, but I've done it in terms of, I guess, their credibility in terms of number of books and the success of those books, but also, financial gains. So if they're self-made multimillionaires through sales, for me, that classifies as the best. And when I look at the sort of common traits amongst those top 100, the three that come up every single time is, number one is the attitude. And it sounds so straightforward, but so many people have negative narrative when thinking about going into a sale, like, I'm nervous, I can't do this, I don't want to cold call, so on and so forth, where these top 100 have the most incredible outlook, and they see everything as a challenge rather than a problem. They see every bit of feedback as a gift rather than a negative, rather than criticism. So yeah, their attitude is just incredibly inspiring. The other two were their questioning ability. And for me, sales is communication. And if we look at communication, it's a two-way dialogue. And it's all about the questions we ask and the responses we get. And the truth is, the better the question, the better response and outcome you're going to get. And what I've noticed with these best of the best is they have an incredible ability to come up with what I call your killer question, one that is thought-provoking, it's engaging, and it's going to get closer to that answer that we want. But they also have the most amazing listening skills. And what I find with so many salespeople is they listen to respond. They're sitting there thinking, when's it my go to talk? Whereas these top 1% listen to learn. And they don't just listen to learn, but they also listen to what is not being shared. And I call that in sales your opportunity antenna. And very often, when you're having a dialogue with one or a group of people, there will be so many opportunities that arise that most salespeople miss. So for me, those three qualities are everything: attitude, questioning ability, and listening ability.
What is the biggest thing that can hold a sales team back?
It's so hard to go for a single thing, but I guess it sort of comes to two things, right? Sales is about will and skill. Skill can absolutely be taught, right? You can learn how to cold call, you can learn how to ask better questions, you can learn how to be a better listener. But will is really hard to change. You've just got to have that drive. And everyone's motivated by different things. Yes, financial gain is definitely a driver, but it's, most people that say they want to earn more money, if you say to them, if I could give you a job that guarantees 10 times your current income, would you take it? And often they'll say, well, what's the job? And the fact they question it means it isn't financial driver. So I think, to answer your question, I think the one biggest block is attitude and mindset. And there are strategies you can use to get into the right frame of mind. One of my favorite books is called The Secret. And The Secret, they talk about shifters. And it's just one strategy to change your outlook, change your view. But for me, that's, I think, the biggest challenge I see with sales teams everywhere is the wrong attitude. And you can have all the skill in the world, but if your attitude is wrong, you're just not going to achieve the success that you deserve.
How can businesses sell with authenticity?
I think authenticity is everything now. People, gone are the days where people like scripts, maybe 15, 20 years ago in call centers, it was all very scripted, but it was fake. and people got that, right? So I think today's world is about personal brand, and with personal brand is being authentic, being sincere, being genuine. So I think if I was a sales leader with a sales team, for me, it's about helping my team all have their own personal brand. So they have their own fans, their own followers. And I think a big part of sales now is video, right? Especially since we're sort of coming out of this pandemic, thank God. But the world has gone on to video. So we're so used to it now. And I think to be authentic, when you do a video, we're not looking for a Steven Spielberg production. We're looking for, just make sure you got a light on you, the speaker's fine, but they want the real person. They want to see no tricks, or it's the real person, their content, their beliefs, their values. And that's what, for me, authenticity is about. So I think it comes from the top down. It has to be the owner of the company, the CEO, and maybe the sales director or sales leader has to instill this within their team on a daily basis to really focus on your personal brand, because only then can you get the right culture, I believe.
Definitely. And I think that's why we've had so much success with these interview series that we've been doing with speakers, because that it has shown such a human side to our speakers. And it's, in the beginning, we were sort of umming and ahhing, this isn't going to directly lead to booking potentially in the way that a landing page may do, but it adds to the building blocks we've already got in place. And I think you're right that there's so much value in that I think people don't really realize.
Well, just to add to that, so last year I actually got diagnosed with bipolar. And I since I lost my dad, I was 25 when I lost my dad, bless him. He was just turned 55, and it was a big trauma in my life. And I don't think I dealt with it. Well, I know I didn't deal with it. I sort of threw myself into the speaking world, which is great, but with trauma, you do need to learn how to grieve. And I've been I suppose most of my life I've been very up and very down. So I see a counsellor, and she recommended a psychiatrist, and he, within 90 minutes, diagnosed me with bipolar, and I was going to hide it. My thoughts were, my clients don't need to know about that. It's going to affect my bookability. And then I thought, you know what? Being authentic, being sincere, that's what people like. So I actually wrote a talk called The Two Tonys, which is speak up about mental health in sales. And the speak up is these 7 strategies that I teach. When I say I teach, they're ones that I've used subconsciously to manage my condition. And I've been told by a lot of people I'm very high functioning. So I'm, so you wouldn't know that I suffer with bipolar, but I suppose they don't see that side of me when I'm very low, I don't want to leave the house, or when I'm very high and my wife says I'm a narcissist. So it's tough, and it's tough for her. Genuinely living with someone like me, I know it's not easy. It's definitely challenging for her, bless her. But I think when I started talking about my mental health, actually I got the most amazing feedback of people thanking me and saying they now have the courage to speak up, and they've been quiet for years. And some of the stories I've heard, Megan, about suicide attempts or breakups in their relationships because of their mental health, it's really sad to hear. So if my thoughts are, if I can help just one person who also suffers speak up and learn how to handle it better, then my goal's achieved.
Why should businesses tailor their sales strategy to their specific industry or sector?
It's everything. Bespoke is everything. So, and I get this, right? I've, in 16 years of running my training company now, we've landed 324 clients. They're split between about 42 industries. And I've done that now in 29 countries. And I see so many differences in all businesses. And it's not, when I say so many differences, even one SaaS business has a completely different language, different strategies to another SaaS business. So I think any development program, in my opinion, can't be off the shelf. because there is never one size fits all. And I think if I was running, well, I say if I'm running a organization where I've only got 4 salespeople, but the training that I give them, and obviously I deliver that, is tailored to our business, right? Which is different to other sales training companies because they have different goals and different dreams, different aspirations. So I think it's really understanding, as a sales leader, understanding your team in so much depth in terms of what motivates them, what demotivates them, what the goals of their business are, what differentiates you from your competition, because there will be differentiators, you just need to learn them. And once you've understood all of that and know where the gaps are, only then, I believe, can it be really tailored. And just to add to that, Megan, before I conduct any training or speaking engagements, I carry out some mystery calls into the business, and I get permission of the owner of the company, which I always get. But I record the calls as well, because I then use them in my training. And I think for me, it's so important that I see and hear the real life of these salespeople. I want to hear what they say on the phone, how they respond to the prospect. I record their Zoom meetings because I want to watch them present, so I can genuinely tailor what I do. And what I then do once I understand the gaps, I like to get my hands dirty. So my superpower, if you will, is I make live calls for them. So for me, it's not just about teaching you the techniques. I feel as a speaker and a coach, it's vital they hear it. So I put myself forward, and I do this in conferences. I actually make live sales calls on stage in front of all the delegates, and I get them to come up on stage with me, give me their dream prospect. I understand their business within 4 or 5 minutes, and then I make a call for them. And I do that because, number one, it's tailored to them, but number two, it's real life. And I'm a big believer in both speaking and training, that everything, as well as being tailored, has to be real life. It's got to be practical. And the sales teams need to be able to implement within the next day of speaking or training. And that's been my philosophy from day one.